Hello everyone, and welcome to the first installment of my series Women of Ancient History, where I create historical profiles based off women from ancient history who over time for various reasons and biases have been forgotten or swept under the rug. As time continues, some people and their legacy begin to fade away from society's mind, and this happens especially often to historical women, despite their achievements in a world where they didn't have the same societal value and opportunities as men. So that is what the focus of this series is going to be, giving a summarized version of the lives of women of ancient history who you should know. Before we jump into our first historical profile, I just want to make it clear and clarify that I am in no way a qualified historian. I am just a nerd who is very passionate about ancient history and studied it for their HSC. While I make an effort to research these topics very thoroughly, there may be gaps to my knowledge. If you are someone who is more knowledgeable on one of these topics than me, and you pick up on something that I may have missed covering or something that was factually incorrect about these women, then please feel free to discuss it in the comments below, because I always love to learn more about history. This first woman who we are going to be discussing today is one that I first researched as a part of a school assignment and found it so surprising that I had never heard of her before this. The more I found out about her, the more interesting and fascinating she became to me, and yet, once again, never heard of her, and she isn't someone memorialized today. And that woman is Hypatia. Hypatia was a female philosopher, astronomer, mathematician, and Neoplatonist born in Alexandria in 360 AD. At this point in time, Alexandria was a pillar of culture and learning within the ancient world, before this was eventually ruined by religious conflict and war. Hypatia's father, Theon or Theotechnos, was also an astronomer and mathematician, so presumably he is the reason why Hypatia developed an understanding of these topics. Despite being a woman, Hypatia earned an influential and high place within scholarly circles due to her exceptional knowledge within her field. She served as a teacher to many men at the Neoplatonist school in Alexandria, and she was admired by many of them for her intelligence. However, not all supported Hypatia. Religious conflict eventually led to the gory demise of Hypatia, which is unfortunately the thing that she ends up being remembered for most. As much as her death is a significant part of her story, I believe we need to honor more of her memory of who she was as a person and her achievements while she was alive, not how she died. Hypatia wrote many works on astronomy and mathematics, particularly on algebraic equations and conic sections. However, all of this work has been lost to us due to the destruction of Alexandria's many museums and libraries. One of her most remarkable achievements was the invention of the astrolabe, which is a device used for navigation on ships, and it was used up until the 18th century and sometimes still today. Many of the men she taught had an extreme respect and adoration for Hypatia, as we can tell from our most common source when it comes to Hypatia, the letters and extracts of letters from Synesius. Hypatia was previously a teacher of Synesius, and even when Synesius went on to become a Christian bishop, they still maintained a companionship with one another. He treats her with adoration and praise throughout his letters, particularly in this letter. I'm dictating this to you from my bed, but may you receive it in good health, mother, sister, teacher, and withal benefactress, and whatever so is honoured in name and deed. But may you preserve your health and give salutations to your apply comrades in turn, beginning with Father Theotechnos and brother Synesius, and so to all. This letter refers to her as mother, sister, teacher, and withal benefactress, all giving this praising tone towards her, but also a personal tone, as he refers to her family and in other letters refers to his own family. Other letter extracts from Synesius include, "The greatest loss of all, however, is the absence of your divine spirit. I'd hope that this would always remain with me, to conquer both the caprices of fortune and the evil turns of fate. I account you as the only good thing that remains inviolate, along with virtue. You always have power, and long may you have it and make good use of that power." Hypatia clearly earned a lot of respect and adoration. One thing that is important to note, however, when looking at all these sources, is that we have no direct voice from Hypatia herself. We don't know what her replies to Synesius was like, or what her voice sounded like. We don't know exactly what her works entailed. All we have of her is from the mouth of other men. This is pretty disappointing, but it's a pretty standard story when it comes to analysing historical women. So Hypatia was respected and admired, intelligent and successful. So why was she brutally murdered? Why did some people perceive her as a threat? During Hypatia's time, Alexandria was under the newly converted Roman Empire, meaning that Christians could freely preach. This led to a lot of religious conflict between the new Christians in the area and the old pagan worshippers of Serapis. Hypatia herself was a pagan. Hypatia's teachings went against many Christian beliefs, both for being a woman in power and status and for teaching concepts against the Bible. John, Bishop of Nicaea, writing in 696 AD in his work The Chronicle, gives us some idea into the Christian view of Hypatia. She was devoted at all times to magic, astrolabes, and instruments of music, and she beguiled many people through her satanic wiles. To both a modern perspective and those within Hypatia's circles, these acts are perfectly innocent. But to the Christians, these acts were enough to label her as satanic and a sorcerer. Due to her teachings against Christian beliefs and values, Hypatia was brutally murdered by a Christian mob. Fair warning, if you are squeamish, you may not want to listen to the description of her death. Hypatia was dragged from her carriage into a church nearby where she was stripped naked and flayed to death and stoned with tiles. Her limbs were then severed and burned. This was an innocent woman. She was just really good at maths. Hypatia's death is extremely saddening, as she was a woman of such achievement and intellect for her time. However, by sharing her achievements and honouring her memory, we can help to keep her legacy alive. So how do we remember Hypatia today, and what ways has she been memorialized? She has had some books written exclusively about her, all of which I recommend reading if you want information beyond this general summary that I've created. Such examples include Hypatia, Her Life and Times by Faith L. Justice, and Hypatia, Mathematician, Philosopher, Myth by Charlotte Booth. Namely, the 2011 film Agora had a significant focus on Hypatia and also the religious tensions within Alexandria. In terms of its depiction of Hypatia, this film did a decent job at showing her intellect and compassion, and I felt like it summed up her personality enough. I disliked, however, that they did change her death to make it more merciful, and it almost romanticized it a little. And frankly, I just found it a little disrespectful with what they did with that. A lot of the research that she does in the film also wasn't accurate to the research Hypatia actually did. There was some mention of conic sections, I believe, and like maths, but she did this little density test on a ship that I believe was created by someone else. In summary, Hypatia was a woman of intelligence and wisdom who served as a teacher of mathematics, astronomy, and philosophy. She created the astrolabe and worked on conic sections and algebraic equations. And all of this led to her death at the hands of a Christian mob. She's a woman who I think deserves to be remembered more than she is. Thank you so much for watching this first episode of my Women of Ancient History series and this historical profile on Hypatia. To make sure you get to see the next episode and the next ancient woman who is particularly badass, make sure that you subscribe to the channel. And in subscribing to the channel, you will not only get more of this series, but you will get more writing, cosplay, history, and overall just nerdy content. If you want more of my videos to be recommended to you, you can stick around to the end screen, and while you're waiting for that, please feel free to give the video a like if you enjoyed, and let me know your thoughts on Hypatia down in the comments below. Thank you so much for your support, and thank you for watching.